Okay, welcome back to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly show, and this week we are talking about Deathline, or Raw Meat as known in America. It's a 1972 co-production between England and America, so directed by an American guy called Gary Sherman, but set in England, based in the London Underground. I personally love this film. It centres on a cannibal living underneath London, preying upon the late-night, early-morning passengers of the London Underground. The guy is almost the last descendant of a dozen railway construction workers who were trapped in a cave-in in 1892, between Russell Square and Museum stations. He travels through the abandoned tunnels to find human meat for him and his kind of almost but probably actually very much dead, but maybe still alive, dead wife. The character of the cannibal, played by Hugh Armstrong, was originally going to be played by none other than Marlon Brando, but he had to back out due to personal reasons. Hence the role was then taken by Hugh Armstrong. Christopher Lee agreed to do this film for scale, just because he wanted desperately to work with Donald Pleasence. Even though, due to massive height differences between the two actors, the director deliberately kept them apart in different scenes. Now, I first saw this film when I was about 10 or maybe 11 years old. So, when I was a child, I was forced to go to church against my will. But what came with that was we used to have these nice trips sometimes on like a Sunday. You know, you get a coach and you go like somewhere like a pantomime or do something like that. So I once tried to go on one of these things, and me being me and the way things were, I turned up about 10 minutes too late. I missed the coach. So I came home kind of upset, as you would be as a child, and my brother, who was a couple of years older than me, said, "Hey, don't worry, I taped this great film off the TV last night." He taped it using one of these amazing devices that were around back then, called a video. So I said, "Okay, what's this film about then?" And he said, "Oh, it's about this cannibal that lives on the underground in London who like eats people who are trying to catch the train late at night." I said, "I'm in." We watched it and it was great. I loved it even as a child. I still love it now. It's a fantastic film. It doesn't get talked about enough. It's not a classic, like known as a classic as it should be. Or maybe it is in some places. I just don't hear about it too often. The film opens with some great music by Will Malone and the Wine is Corked man from Fawlty Towers, James Cossins. In a scene that I always confuse with that similar scene in American Werewolf in London, so much so that every time I watch American Werewolf in London, I'm always waiting for the Wine is Corked guy from Fawlty Towers to turn up. Donald Pleasence is great in this film. There's some brilliant scenes of him getting quite annoyed about these newfangled things called tea bags. Very angry about them. Now that kind of makes me ask a few questions about the film's timeline. I mean, when were tea bags invented? Surely by 1972 tea bags were already quite an established thing. But then again, I have to ask myself a few questions about the actual timeline anyway. So the cave-in happened in 1892. So 1892. I mean, so the cannibals that are left down there, like the guy and his kind of almost dead wife, so how old would that make them? I mean, so they were children, they were grandchildren of the people, so they've managed to sustain themselves with grandchildren since that time, but yet now they're diseased and ill. So how did they? I mean, having a baby is quite a difficult thing. You have to feed them the right stuff, or they die quite young. So how do they manage to have generations of people down there when this guy is covered in warts and really ill? I mean, I wondered that maybe back, because of the whole teabag thing and all that. Maybe this film was set earlier. Like this film was set kind of like in the 19th century. I don't know. Maybe it was set before the 70s, but then this couple are blatantly from the 1970s, and so there's this train and the whole setting and the whole situation. So you've got like a kind of 1970s blatant thing going on here with a detective who's like something from the 19th century complaining about tea bags. But I'm not going to get bogged down with this whole inconsistency thing because, some of the greatest blockbusters of Hollywood have massive inconsistencies. You have to kind of overlook that stuff just to enjoy the film. So yeah, Deathline. It's a great film anyway. I love it. There was eventually an almost remake of sorts, or perhaps rip-off is a better word. A film called Creep, made in 2004. A film about a woman trapped in the underground overnight while being stalked by a weird deformed serial killer. Sounds kind of familiar. But in a weird parallel with Deathline, in this movie you kind of find yourself not caring about any of the characters, whether they live or die. Whereas in Deathline, you sympathise with everyone, including the cannibal. He is just another victim, a victim of circumstance. So that was a brief review about the film Deathline, or Raw Meat, as it's also known. If you liked this video or enjoyed it in any way, please hit the subscribe button. That's a definite thing that we need to happen, unless you don't feel like it, and then don't do it. Or like, share, whatever, or that kind of thing. Tune in to us on Phonic FM every Thursday lunchtime, 12 till 2. 106.8, and listen to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly show doing music and stuff. And yeah, join us on our next video where we go into the deep dark woods to investigate the paranormal.